Hello, everyone. Welcome to SpecterCast, the monthly podcast series of the All Inspector Center at Thomas Jefferson University in Philadelphia. This is a podcast where experts talk to experts on various matters of general and topical interest. My name is Raju Parakkal. I'm Associate Professor of International Relations at Thomas Jefferson University and the host for today's podcast. Today is June 2020, and it's time for our SpecterCast episode titled, episode 2 titled COVID-19 Conspiracies. And today we are quite delighted to have with us my dear friend, colleague, co-author, and co-founder with me on this podcast series, Professor Evan Laine. But before I let Professor Laine speak, and I know he's all ready to go on this topic, I would like to take a minute to introduce him formally. Many of our listeners, especially within the university, would already know him. Evan wears many hats at the university. He is Associate Professor of History, the Program Director of the Law and Society program, which is one of our most successful programs at the university. And he serves as the faculty director of the All Inspector Center. And also before joining the university, he was a very successful trial lawyer. I think I got that right. And he was specializing in medical malpractice. So he had a very successful career before he became a professor. And very relevant to our discussion today is the fact that he teaches an intermediate level interdisciplinary course on conspiracy theory. So we kind of have our best person on this topic from our campus to join us today. And with that, I welcome Evan. We are delighted to have you here with us today.
Thank you for inviting me.
All right, sure. Let's proceed. And and thanks once again to all of you. And I can see that there are people joining us from different parts of the world. That's very exciting and reassuring for us and encouraging for us. Here is how we will go about with today's podcast. It's going to be around 30 minutes, and we have a bunch of questions. The first few questions will be just generally on the topic of conspiracy theories, and then we will proceed to the specific topic of COVID-19 conspiracies. All right, so let's start at the beginning so that all our listeners are up to speed with this topic. What are conspiracy theories? What makes a theory, quote unquote, a conspiracy theory?
Well, if we start with just the word conspiracy, it's just more than one person agreeing to do something. But that's in criminal law. Conspiracy theories are different. Conspiracy theories is when a group of people give meaning to a large event to nefarious causes. That somehow there's some dark conspiracy by elites or whoever it may be down the road who are agreeing to conspire against a marginalized community usually. These conspiracy theories are often immune to evidence as far as evidence against them, and often use circular logic. And I thought even one of the best examples of this would be Japanese internment. When General DeWitt, who was the one who did the analysis for FDR Roosevelt on whether or not the Japanese posed a threat, and he found out there was no evidence. But what he said was that the fact that there was no evidence was evidence of just how secretive the Japanese were, thus making them dangerous. So that kind of logic is overwhelming in conspiracy theories.
Okay, so I think what you're trying to say is that there should be a nefarious dimension to a theory for it to become a conspiracy theory.
Right, and it's usually unsupported by evidence. If anything, it flies in the face of evidence supported by recognized sources.
All right, so that brings up a question, a follow-up question. Probably, I think I know the answer, but I'm just going to ask you anyway. Are there any good or even harmless conspiracy theories?
No, I'll tell you why, because in the conspiracy course I teach, we touch on the more significant ones, and the students themselves bring up some that are not as significant. For example, flat Earth. There are a number of people out there that believe the Earth is flat, and I'm not joking. And you may say, okay, so what? They believe it's flat Earth, but it's the way of thinking that sets them on a path that leads them to adopt more dangerous conspiracy theories. You and I, in our article, had proven that people who are conspiracy-minded tend to adopt further and greater conspiracies. So even though you may say, oh, flat Earth, big deal, or the moon landing didn't happen, so what? But that kind of thinking, the ability to completely ignore evidence, to become so paranoid that you distrust even simple provable items, that leads to you adopting more dangerous conspiracies, which we'll be talking about today.
So I believe there is a transferability to conspiracy theories, meaning if someone believes in one, chances are that they will believe in many others also.
Absolutely, because if you take the mindset that you are going to distrust evidence, solid evidence like NASA, or pictures, or astronauts, or satellites, or people circumnavigating the world, whatever, if you're going to ignore obvious, provable evidence, then you're going to go set yourself on a path which is not good, and I find it very disturbing. So there is no good, benign conspiracy theories as far as I'm concerned.
All right, I'm glad that you mentioned our article that was published back in 2017, the one that you and I co-authored. And in that article, which has actually become quite, I'm self-congratulating us. It is.
Well, I'll congratulate you, you'll congratulate me, so this way it doesn't seem obnoxious.
Yeah.
Great job
right.
there, Raju, amazing article, your turn.
Same thing, Evan. So
Okay.
that article, from what we have learned, is since its publication, it's become pretty popular and prominent in the literature. We looked at why almost like 30% of Americans that were surveyed still believe in the 9/11 conspiracy theory that the Bush administration was responsible directly or indirectly for the 9/11 attacks. So my question then to you is, what makes people believe in conspiracy theories? Is it about them as people, or is it more about the attractiveness of the theory, or is it a bit of both?
I think we should start the analysis by looking at their two motivations. The motivation of those who actually make up these conspiracy theories are often very different from those who believe. So I want to first start with the people who accept and believe these theories. And it's multifaceted. What you and I came to the conclusion in our wonderful article was fear has a lot to do with it. Especially with 9/11, what we found is a tremendous amount of fear was generated, obviously, by it and the continued media coverage. So the person listening needs to eliminate that fear or live in fear, which is perfectly acceptable, but some people can't. So what they look for is simple answers that explain to them what happened and also eliminates fear. So with 9/11, for example, if we were to accept the fact that a small band of individuals, not state-supported other than arguably Saudi Arabia, were able to take down our financial institutions, attack our Pentagon, almost kill the president at Flight 93, and of course, take down the towers. If they're able to do that, that generates a tremendous amount of fear that we are subject to not safety, but if they could take us down, what could China do? What could North Korea do? What could Russia do if this small band could put us to our knees those days, which they did? So what you do is you create a narrative that makes you feel better. And the narrative is that Bush was responsible, that we had a very strong defense system that he turned down that day. So once he's eliminated from the system, the defense system returns and we feel safe again. If we would accept the fact that this is a very, very dangerous world and our oceans don't protect us anymore, and we are subject to terrorist attacks just like any other country, that fear is too much. So we create the happy narrative that makes us sleep at night better. So that's one thing, safety, and that's what you and I found in our study. The other thing is we need to assign a reasonable explanation for things that satisfies us. And if the explanations become complex, then we are more distressed. So we look for the simple explanations. So that's another reasons why we believe. And finally, another, which I find very interesting, it's like, go back to the flat earthers and so forth. In our society where we are so subject to modernization, from moving from town to town, friend to friend, place to place, job to job, our sense of belonging is so interrupted of who we are and what our personalities and what our identities are, that we find comfort in an identifiable group, even if they're crazy, like flat earth. Or I'm part of this. This is who I am. I'm a flat earther. I'm a 9/11 truther. I'm an Obama birther. I'm just not part of the faceless mass of people. I'm somebody. So I really think these things work out.
Makes them feel more powerful.
Exactly, exactly.
So that sort of explains the people who believe in these theories. And before we go to the people who actually make up these theories, let me just pause for a second and sort of try to understand all that you said. So I think what you're trying to say here is that people who believe this theory have many motivations. One of them, at least as you started off, was that people intrinsically don't like randomness. So when things are random, which means there is no clear explanation for something that happens, or at least explanation that they can actually understand and accept, they do lean towards these sorts of theories that gives them some sense that it is not that random, it's more organized. So as you said, thinking that a bunch of people who lived in caves in Afghanistan were responsible for the 9/11 attacks, that is extremely unnerving and unsettling for, especially for the average American.
And I want to address the random nature, because modern world is random. And violence is random. So we look for reasons for things even when they don't exist, because we can't control random. We can't, but we could control what we think is a reason. The classic terrible example is in rape cases, for example. Well, she was raped because she wore a short skirt, which is obviously nonsense. But it gives the believer, well, if I don't wear a short skirt, I won't get raped, which is wrong. Yeah. But it gives the person a sense of control, that somehow there's cause and effect. And if there's cause and effect, then I can avoid fear. If I was to accept the fact that we are random and crazy stuff happens, for example, a virus mutates and suddenly comes across the world, then another virus could happen, or all kinds of terrible things are coming our way. So if we think there are reasons, people to blame, cause and effect, then we can stop it. It's a fantasy, but it comforts us.
So a quick, again, I think you should go back to explaining what explains the motivations for people who create these theories.
Well, that is even the more nefarious part of this a lot of times. The word control, I've been talking about the person who believes they want to control their world and get rid of randomness and fear. The people who create these conspiracies often want to control others. What they're doing is exploiting the fear in others so that they can gain illegitimate power. They're nothing more than the old snake oil salesman coming from town to town, exploiting the stupidity of the people there. They wanted cures for their different illnesses. So the guy comes in, I have this little snake oil thing. It will cure this, it will cure cancer, it'll do that. And they go, oh, yeah. What those people are calculating, those people are extremely cynical and understand the need of those for these explanations and use that as a tool to gain money and power. A classic example is our president's birther theory, which set forth that despite an avalanche, a mountain, a Grand Canyon of evidence that Obama was born in Hawaii, set forth that he was born in Africa. This was put forth because it played into the fear of certain groups of America who feared a black man becoming president of the United States, created this otherness in an American citizen, became an other through this birther theory. Using this, he got votes. It's a very cynical thing. It's like the lion tamer throwing meat to the lion, knowing that the lion wants it, and the tamer on his end is able to put on a show. And this is it's control on their end. Also, money is a very big motivator as well.
And I would add, thank you for that. And I would add that these people who create these theories actually know the motivations of people who propagate these theories, as you explained earlier. They know that these people suffer from fear. They suffer from an intense hatred of randomness, and they need order and certainty in their lives. And they need the kinship, as you said, I'm a birther, I'm a flat earther, and all those things. So probably I believe that they both rub off on each other. So this brings up another question, that is, are conspiracy theories new?
Oh, no. They date back hundreds and hundreds of years of people have been exploiting others for power reasons for the longest period of time. I say to my class, and I say it in jest, but it's dark humor, almost every conspiracy theory somehow is related to Jews. Because if you look at it, I mean, it's unbelievable. And my students actually try to search for some that aren't and actually can't find any, because there's always some sort of tie-in. The Protocols of the Elders of Zion is a very old conspiracy that dates back to pre-communist Russia, which established that the Jews got together in a meeting. Unfortunately, none of my relatives were invited, and came up with a plan and wrote a book on how to control the world. And it's a fake book. It was actually a dark comedy written 100 years previously. And what they did is an ancient copy and paste and put the Jews in there. Tsar Nicholas used it to destroy the Jewish community, and I mean destroy, because he stirred up hatred against them using this false book, because he knew that a lot of Jews were Bolsheviks and communists and against him. So a way to kill them was to create this false book. So that has created then, and continues to, George Soros conspiracy theories, who's a Jewish philanthropist, who's blamed for everything now, is just a modern version of the Protocols of the Elders of Zion. So there's an ancient one. The oracles in Rome, were ancient conspiracy theories. It's been used. It's so common and so easy. You would think the human race would have figured this out, that they're being conned. But I guess you just keep on going back to the well, but as long as it works.
But here is something that I want to distinguish between what you said and what we perceive. So I grew up in India and you grew up in New York. When we were growing up, even though conspiracy theories existed even then, it wasn't that prominent and in your face as we somehow feel they are now. What do you think has contributed to this massive spread and consumption of conspiracy theories? And I have to follow up that with this question, that have we human beings suddenly become more stupid?
Human beings have always been stupid. So it's something that continues. It's this infernal machine that you and I are staring at right now.
You mean the technology?
The technology. When I present this to my class, because we go first couple of weeks, we go reasons for conspiracies, and there are a lot. I named it after my son, who I thought came up with it, so I'll give him a shout out. I call it Brandon theory. And what Brandon said was, my son, that people used to have their stupid ideas and they'd go in their basement and talk to themselves about it.
I've heard about this.
And then that was okay, because all that people, maybe their family heard them mutter some nonsense, whoever it may be, but that was it. But now they're still in those basements, but they're able to connect to other people in other basements. And suddenly the democratization of information, which says everyone has an opinion now, is good and bad. Because unfortunately, some people have good opinions, and some people, a lot of people, have really bad opinions. And not only that, but if I started with you, say back and forth, put on the internet, it's a lovely day. Don't you like going outside and reading a book? Who the hell's going to read it, right? Who cares?
Yeah.
But if I put on something crazy, that I was on my backyard and aliens came down and read to me Dr. Seuss rhymes, people go, oh my God, that's interesting. And suddenly I have a following. And
Yes.
suddenly other people who believe that, oh, I saw these aliens too. And they read to me some other Dr. Seuss rhymes. So it's the democratization of information. And it's unfortunate. And people like Rush Limbaugh, who on radio can spread all kinds of things. Or the worst, Alex Jones, who talks about the worst of things, that there were actors in that terrible Newtown killing where so many children died. It's so upsetting to talk about. He says it's all staged. Years ago, a person like Alex Jones would be laughed at as a man in a tin hat on the street. Now Alex Jones is worth millions of dollars because he could share his insane ideas with tons of people who like it. So it's this machine.
I have to clarify for some of our listeners who have tuned in from outside the United States. If you don't know who Alex Jones is, he is one of the top peddlers of conspiracy theories on U.S. media, and he has his own show. And it's best not to. I mean, it's each person's decision, but there is a lot of conspiracy theory mongering going on in his show. All right. So before we get to the COVID-19 conspiracy theories, I have one final question, because all of our discussions sort of kind of have been about American ones, and I'm going to wear my international relations professor's hat and ask you about the global nature of conspiracy theories. Are conspiracy theories, at least the modern ones, more unique to Americans, or is it just that American conspiracy theories get more global coverage because of the massive American media presence all over the world? Or as a society, are Americans more vulnerable to such theories? What's your take on that?
I want to hand the last part. Remind me to hand the last part, because that was a very interesting question. But
yeah.
Brexit is a perfect example of how England is very much involved. Again, the Jews. Goldman Sachs was supposedly, according to a number of people in the Brexit party, conspiring with the fund managers to have Brexit, because they knew the market would crash and they would bet against it in stock market puts or whatever it may be. So the Jews were behind that. That's another conspiracy theory from England. Lady Diana is a huge conspiracy theory that she was murdered by the crown. That's circulated all through England. In the Arabic world, it is circulated very strongly that 9/11 was, again, going back to my favorite topic, was conducted by the Jews. And that's why they all got text messages the day of the attack, so no Jews died, which of course is a complete lie, because 400 Jews died and nobody got text messages. But they are taught that. I actually had Saudi kids in my class, very nice students, who told me that that was part of their teaching in their history class. And they also read Protocols of the Elders of Zion as if it was a textbook. So conspiracies have been around the world for a very long time. What is unique about America? Why are we more? Because we're not a homogeneous society. We are so different, so many different interests, so many different people, so many different backgrounds, so many different people to blame for everything, that I think that makes us, because there's no American. Look at you and I,
There's no one America.
There's no one America. You look at our classrooms, there's many different types of America, which is really good, but also lays the seeds for some of us.
Got it. All right. I think we need to fast forward to our current pandemic times. And as we know, COVID-19 has generated some pretty interesting and even outlandish conspiracy theories.
Good God, yeah. I'm going, my eyes are going off the screen. What I'm doing is I'm looking at the myriad of ones so I can consult them, because you can't possibly memorize all these things.
Yeah, please tell us about all the crazy ones, at least the top ones, that so our listeners can enjoy, quote unquote, enjoy these COVID conspiracy theories.
Okay, the first, of course, is that 5G technology has brought this on. Yes, 5G technology, which is to give us faster internet, has been introduced about the same time as when COVID came. And a lot of Americans, a lot of people have a difficulty between correlation and causation. Correlation is that something happens coincidentally at the same time. For example, I wake up in the morning, the sun is up. Is my waking up the cause of the sun coming up? Yes, it is. But no, I'm just kidding. Maybe not. But that is not, I have no power over it. It's just related in time. So it's obviously correlational. But people see this and they believe the towers. And they actually believe it so strongly in England. They've been attacking the towers and knocking them down. Obviously, there's no science based on it. Another conspiracy theory is that wearing of masks somehow is going to increase. Hi, Louise. I'm going to get, if you can just, thank you. That was Louise McShane, by the way, for those who want to. Another one of conspiracy, we talk about masks, is that they increase the disease because you breathe out, they say, and therefore you're breathing in the same disease, which of course is ridiculous, because if the disease is in you to begin with, it's not going to be an issue bringing it back in. But these are things, that's become politicized, by the way, and we can talk about that later. Another one is that the Democrats are actually politicizing this, that there is no break. This is nothing but a normal flu, and the Democrats are using this to bring down Donald Trump. That's one of the biggest one I've seen. When we talked about evidence before, it's very interesting how they cherry pick. I think as of today, 120,000 or so people have died. What this one group who's very strong in the conspiracies has said is they looked and they saw one old age home, senior citizens home, where 700 people died. There are only 500 or so people who live there. So obviously that shows that all the statistics are wrong. So they take this very, very small little piece, concentrate on that, and ignore the 119,500 other people who died. So that's another way, conspiracy theory. So that's the main thing going on right now, is that it's not there, it's just the flu. The Democrats are doing it. Oh, and that Chinese put it in a lab together in order to destroy America. That's the last one.
Yeah, so again, putting on my international relations professor's hat, this actually sort of becomes an international incident where a lot of people believe at this point that, and it's a very strong belief, and it's not just in the United States, it's across the world, that this was manufactured by China in a lab as a potential weapon to use against Western civilization. That's what a lot of Westerners believe. A lot of non-Chinese, non-Westerners believe that this was done, again, made in the factory in China to help China become the next superpower. Thoughts on that?
Yeah, well, first, just quickly, and you could read it. I'm not going to spend time here, but you could read better articles on this. There's no question it was not manufactured in a lab, that the mutation occurred naturally. It came out of China. But this is exploited for various different reasons. One, for racism, for the base, calling it the Kung flu, yeah, which our president continues to do, even though it's been marked as being racist, even after being told it was racist, even though he has been informed that people of Asian background have been viciously attacked because of this. He continues to use it even as of yesterday. So that's a way of, again, selling your snake oil and feeding or another analogy, feeding the red meat to your believers. It also, if we look at more conspiracy-minded, it gives somebody to blame. It goes back to the old, when I went at the beginning talking about conspiracy theories, they try to look in the world as good and evil, not random, as you had talked several times, not random that this thing just came out, but good and evil. And there's a bad actor, so we know who to blame. And if there's a bad actor, then we could stop that in the future. And that's what this is all about. They manufacture in a lab, they're bad people, so if we ostracize them from the world, it will never happen to us again. I feel better. But yeah, if it's, oh my God, this stuff could happen at any time, any country, any place, any day, then it's, oh God, what am I going to do? It's just too much stress. So finding the bad actor gives us comfort and safety, even though it's not true.
So that gives me a very good segue to my next question. Uh, because as we learn more about conspiracy theories, we get the sense that conspiracy theories are somehow bad. And when it comes to COVID conspiracy theories, what exactly are the bad effects here?
People are dying. Okay, plain and simple. Failure to act quickly, failing to act properly is going to lead to more people dying. Failing to pay attention to evidence is going to lead people to die. Plain and simple. Conspiracy theories can be very dangerous, even going back to the Boston bombing. For those of you who are foreign listening to us, Boston Marathon, there was two brothers put down bombs and killed a number of people and dismembered many of them. Their mother was a 9/11 conspiracy theorist, believing that the Bush administration blamed it on Muslims, and that's what radicalized these boys. So we have conspiracy theories lead to people dying. The Protocols of Elders of Zion was cited by Hitler in his Mein Kampf.
Yeah.
And many have said that that has led to one of the causing factors of the Holocaust. People die over these things. So the COVID conspiracies are leading people not to be careful, not to wear masks, not to believe it's real. And unfortunately, they're going to expose themselves and others who unfortunately may come across them. More people are going to die, our economies are going to be wrecked, all because we fail to look at evidence properly.
And just this morning, as I was watching the news, I just learned, quite sadly, that in the US, our number of cases are actually back to the top where we were just 2 months ago in April. And a lot of that reason is because people aren't wearing masks. And I think it connects with what you were saying about the bad effects. So just going forward very quickly, most scholars of conspiracy theories, including yourself, I would imagine, would say that the best way to avoid getting sucked into this vortex of conspiracy theories would be to inform and educate oneself. But what I've observed is that at least in the US, but also in parts of Western Europe and in the UK, COVID conspiracies have acquired a political character, where people who have certain political predispositions believe in such theories. So it seems like political affiliations, by which I mean whether you are left or right, determines for a lot of people whether they should believe in conspiracy theories or not. What are your thoughts on this connection between politics and conspiracy theories?
Well, it's brilliant, isn't it? By those who seek power.
Yeah.
Because what you do is you grab the supporter who is unyielding, not subject to any argument of any kind. If you believe the world is made up of good and evil, and you're on the side of good, there's nothing that convince you otherwise. What I have found, which is very disheartening, is there's two types of people. People who haven't really put much effort or invested much. You can convince them. I have students who come in with very strong 9/11 conspiracy believers that Bush did it or let it happen on purpose. And then when we go over it, I show them the evidence. They go, oh, okay, and they'll switch. I actually do studies on it. But then for the people who invested, don't waste your time.
Yeah.
Don't waste your time. I've given up. If someone has really shown that they are invested, there's no turning back. They've gone in this deep hole, this deep vortex, and there's no getting them out. So does education help? Only for those who aren't invested. For those who are invested, you and I, the best scientists, Albert Einstein, could sit in front of them and give them the greatest evidence in the world. And they'll go, you're a very smart guy, but you're wrong because I believe you're wrong. And that'll be the end of it.
Wow. Okay. That's a pretty sad note. I have two more questions.
Baseball's coming back. Maybe.
Two more questions before we wrap it up. So,
yeah.
And moving to something that I think is very important here. Tech and social media giants like Facebook, Google, Twitter are major factors in both the dissemination of conspiracy theories and, ironically, also in our fight against this menace. And big tech firms are only going to be more influential in our lives. So, as you, someone who's a scholar of this topic, as you look forward 5 or 10 years ahead, how do you visualize these tech giants reacting to the menace of conspiracy theories? Do you think they will understand the magnitude of the problem in terms of its wider social implications, or do you think they will decide to stay on the sidelines and not be arbiters of the truth, as they have been saying all along? In your opinion, where should they, by they I mean big tech firms like Facebook and Twitter, where should they draw the line?
They won't. And they're not on the sideline, they're on the forefront.
Okay.
Because the 2016 election showed that Facebook was one of the strongest components of spreading conspiracy theories on behalf of Trump. They don't care. All that matters to them is profit. And they profit big from this. Put out a juicy conspiracy theory, more clicks, more people getting involved, more use. So they could care less and will not care less. So if we depend on them to be arbiters of the truth, oh, great, look at Twitter. They put a warning on that unbelievably racist Twitter that Trump put up with the two little kids. That was horrible. It really was. It was disgusting. So what? It was still there. And if anything, it's like, oh, let me see what they put the label on. If anything, more people will read it. So it's a complete waste of time. We can't depend on them at all. If anything, they'll get worse. We have to be careful. I give an example. There are a lot of people I know who continually post that Trump saying that Republicans are idiots. I'll run for office one day and I can make them believe anything. He didn't say that. Yeah. He didn't say that. And every time I see anything on Facebook, I don't use Twitter, but anytime I see anything on Facebook, I check it out. And it's so easy. It takes seconds. You check it out and you see, oh, this is false. I always put back, please don't pass this on. This is not correct. So we have to become the police of information because they sure as hell will not. Too much money involved.
So that gives me the perfect segue to my final question on this. Because tech is not going to do anything about it, at least as you imagine it. How can we as a society combat the menace of conspiracy theories and of COVID conspiracies in particular?
With COVID conspiracy, we're all invested because all of our lives are on the line. This is no joke. This is, we talk about flat Earth, and I'm happy about that. But people not believing in science right now, not believing in using masks, will end up in killing people. We will have people dying because of this. And I hope it's nobody we know, okay? I hope it's nobody who's innocent, who wears masks, who takes care to be careful. But if we don't take control of this situation and make sure that rules are followed and make masks mandatory if we have to. And by the way, I've read the Constitution, unlike a lot of these people. None of the amendments talk about wearing, having the ability not to wear a mask. I haven't come across that yet. But if anyone has, let me know. Maybe it's Amendment 50 that I haven't read yet. But in any event, we have to take control of the situation. Science has to win out. Otherwise, we're going to see deaths in the hundreds of thousands. This is no joke.
I can't let you go before asking you one more question. Of all the conspiracy theories that you are aware of and you have talked about and taught to your students, is COVID-19 conspiracies the most lethal?
No. I would say up to this point, the protocols probably are the most lethal because millions have died. I hope that doesn't change.
Okay. All right. On that.
But everyone, baseball is coming back in July, so I'll leave it on
that relatively happy note that COVID conspiracies is not the most lethal.
Not yet.
We have to wrap it up there. Thank you so much, Professor Evan Laine, for being our expert today. And thank you all for joining us today. We hope you enjoyed our conversation, and we hope you will join us on our next podcast, which is almost, exactly every month, almost towards the end of the month, the last week. Well, until then, take care and be safe.
Bye-bye.
Bye.